Key question. How do organisms generate energy when oxygen is not available? When oxygen is not present, glycolysis is maintained by a pathway that makes it possible to continue to produce ATP without oxygen. The combined process of this pathway and glycolysis is called fermentation. In the absence of oxygen, fermentation releases energy from food molecules by producing ATP. During fermentation, cells convert NADH to NAD+ by passing high-energy electrons back to pyruvic acid. This allows glycolysis to keep going and to produce a steady supply of ATP. Fermentation is an anaerobic process that occurs in the cytoplasm of cells. Sometimes glycolysis and fermentation are together referred to as anaerobic respiration. There are two slightly different forms of the process: alcoholic fermentation and lactic acid fermentation. Alcoholic fermentation. The process of alcoholic fermentation is conducted by yeast. In this process, NADH combines with pyruvic acid to form alcohol, carbon dioxide, and NAD+. The NAD+ allows glycolysis to continue without oxygen. One common way to see this process is in the baking of bread. The yeast release carbon dioxide, which are the air pockets you see in bread. The alcohol that forms evaporates when the bread is baked. Lactic acid fermentation. Lactic acid fermentation is carried out by bacteria. These bacteria convert pyruvic acid and NADH into lactic acid and NAD+. As with alcoholic fermentation, the NAD+ allows glycolysis to continue. This process is common in food production. Yogurt, cheese, and sour cream rely on lactic acid fermentation. Humans are also lactic acid fermenters. During brief periods without enough oxygen, many of the cells in our body, most often muscle cells, produce ATP by lactic acid fermentation. Energy and exercise. Key question. How does the body produce ATP during different forms of exercise? When people exercise, their bodies use chemical energy to power their movements. Exercise uses up the available ATP quickly in the body. The body has to quickly make ATP in order to provide further energy for the body to exercise. Quick energy. Under normal circumstances, the body is able to take in enough oxygen to fuel cellular respiration. But sometimes, exercise involves rapid movements that occur in fast spurts. In these circumstances, the body uses the supply of ATP in the muscles quickly. While normal aerobic respiration cannot supply enough ATP to flood the muscles quickly, lactic acid fermentation can because it does not require oxygen and is a quicker process. Lactic acid fermentation can provide the muscles enough ATP for a short burst. However, the consequence is the person might need extra oxygen to help remove the excess lactic acid. This is sometimes called oxygen debt. This is why people who exercise rapidly, like sprinters, often huff and puff after exercising. Long-term energy. For exercise longer than about 90 seconds, cellular respiration is the only way to continue generating a supply of ATP. Cellular respiration releases energy more slowly than fermentation does, which is why even well-conditioned athletes have to pace themselves during a long race or over the course of a game. Your body stores energy in muscle cells and other tissues in the form of the carbohydrate glycogen. These stores of glycogen are usually enough to last for 15 or 20 minutes of activity. After that, your body begins to break down other stored molecules, including fats, for energy. Athletes competing in long-distance events, such as the marathon, depend on the efficiency of their respiratory and circulatory systems to provide their muscles with oxygen to support long periods of aerobic exercise. Compare and contrast cellular respiration and fermentation. Make sure to list the similarities in the center of the diagram. List the differences on the outside of the diagram.